Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the DC Capstone Report. Glad to be back with you this week. Coming off a loss at Baton Rouge to LSU in overtime, and in this podcast today, we're going to take a look and review in the first segment the game against LSU. In the second segment, we're going to take a look at our players of the game, and in the third and final segment today, we're going to preview the game against the Ole Miss Rebels on the road. You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com. Well, we're back with the DC Capstone Report. Thank you for tuning in. Lance and I appreciate each of you tuning in each and every week. Have a lot of new followers and a lot of new listeners, and we really appreciate that. Well, this week we're coming off a loss. Second loss of the season, 7-2 now, and really played a tough game. LSU, I want to give LSU credit. First of all, before I say anything about what Alabama did, I want to give LSU credit. LSU came in, new coach, got off to a rough start, really put things together down the stretch, and in this game it looked like they had really planned for Alabama. The crowd was in it. It was a really good atmosphere, and LSU had the lead most of the night. Alabama tied it up, went ahead and then tied it up late, and it looked like that we were going to be able to go into overtime and have opportunity on the road, but LSU had a great call there. I mean, it took a lot of guts to make that call to go for two. Either you win the game or you lose the game by one. So it looked like Brian Kelly made the right call. They had the right play call to the freshman tight end out of the backfield, and they won the game on that overtime 2-point conversion, 32-31. So I give LSU all the credit in this game. Well, let's take a look at the game a little bit and review as to what I think went wrong. We said last week that in order to win that game, my keys to the game, that Alabama needed to go in and play with discipline. They need to limit turnovers, and they need to put pressure on the quarterback when they had when we were on defense. Well, we didn't do a good job of either of those things. We did pressure the quarterback fairly well, but we not enough to keep him in the pocket long enough. He did hurt us with his legs, I believe, especially in overtime, and he did extend some plays, but we didn't do a good job of limiting mistakes and limiting turnovers. I believe we played a very undisciplined game. I don't know what it is on the road. I'm not sure what's lacking on here. But I don't think we played a very disciplined game at all, not up to the Alabama standard. And in this game, we had too many mistakes, too many penalties, too many times on defense where we let them get off the field, extend the plays on third down. We couldn't get off the field. And LSU took advantage of us running the ball several times on defense when we were in the right coverages to cover the pass. They would run. When we were in the right coverage to cover the run, they would pass. So they did a good job of scheming and planning for this game against Alabama. But I thought we would play a better game. I predicted we would win, but we did not. We came away losing that game. My turning point of the game, though, was early on, and I think this happens sometimes when you're on the road. And I don't often criticize players, and this is not a criticism of at all. It's just of what happened, and I believe it was the turning point of the game. We held them, got off the field on a 3-and-out. We come out on offense and we drive all the way down to within the red zone, and uncharacteristically, Bryce Young made a decision to throw the ball when he should have just thrown the ball away, and that ball was intercepted in the end zone. Now, a lot of folks look at that as early in the game. We had plenty of chances at that. It is. But I want to tell you, I think that was the turning point in the game. That was the time where we had an opportunity to hit the first nail in the coffin, if you will, score, go up 7-0. It flips the field position. It gets us in a better position emotionally, mentally, takes the crowd a little bit out of the game, and gives our defense something to play for going back out there. But it was very difficult to see that happen. Well, I want to see how it happened. LSU had a really good scheme for Bryce Young in this game. The only thing that Bryce Young has not going for him, he's the best player, in my opinion, in college football as far as quarterback. But his height limits him when he's in the middle of the pocket. And LSU caught on to that and they decided they were going to try to keep him in the middle of the pocket and keep their hands up and rush in his face so he'd have to throw around them and try to make him to make up some uncharacteristic mistakes. And that's exactly what they did all night long, and that's exactly what happened on that first play. If you look at the replay, he throws the ball, he probably can't even see. He was throwing to an area where he thought his receiver was going to be. And he got a little behind the receiver, didn't lead him enough, and it ended up being an interception by LSU. So I think that was my turning point in this game. I believe that was an issue. The last part of the game where I thought we made some errors in coaching or decision making is, I think, deciding to kick to go for 2 on our last touchdown instead of kicking the extra point, I believe was a big decision that did not go our way. We didn't get the 2, and had we kicked the extra point, we would have been up 1 more point. And what that would have meant, then when we drove that last time to kick the field goal instead of tying the game to go into overtime, we would have been kicking the field goal to win the game and with no time on the clock. So I think that decision, if we'd had it back, I'm not sure why you go for 2 there in that situation. Understood the other going for 2, but I'm not sure why you would go for 2 in that final touchdown that we made. I believe if we kicked the extra point, would have been a better decision. If we had that one back, I think we would have kicked the extra point and had an opportunity. But, you know, my Uncle Bud used to say, ifs and buts are candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So, you know, we can't go back and with hindsight look at these things. But in the game, I think we could have done a better job making that decision. And I believe we could have done a better job being more disciplined on certain of the plays. But give credit to LSU, credit where it's due. LSU comes away with a big victory, 32-31, sending Alabama to a 7-2 record. Well, here in the second segment, we're going to take a look at our players of the game. First of all, let's look at our players of the game on offense. The first player of the game on offense is Jahmyr Gibbs. He had 15 carries for 99 yards with a 6.6-yard average rushing the ball. He also caught 8 passes for 64 yards. So he was over 150 total yards in this game. Really played well. Thought he did a really good job of running the ball when he got the ball out of the run, and also getting open in pass space. So Jahmyr Gibbs is one of my offensive players of the game. My second offensive player of the game is a wide receiver that seems to have been coming back here lately, and that is Ja'Cory Brooks. You know, he had a good finish last year, kind of disappeared earlier this year, but it really came on this latter part of the season here. He had 7 receptions for 97 yards, averaged over almost 14 yards of reception, and he had 1 touchdown in this game. So my offensive players of the game are Jahmyr Gibbs and Ja'Cory Brooks. Now on defense, I think we did a really good job of tackling, and I think some of our stats team-wise bear that out. I think they were able to hold them to 367 total yards in the game, and we had 465 total yards, so we outgained them in the game. But you know, I think our tackling was good. So 2 but defensive players of the game are going to be 2 of our biggest tacklers in this game. That was DeMarco Hellams. He had 9 tackles and 3 assists. And Brian Branch, he had 7 tackles and 2 assists. I think both of them did a good job in their roles as safety and star in this game of coming up and supporting and making the tackles and covering the passes when they had to. So my defensive players of the game are DeMarco Hellams and Brian Branch. So just to review, my offensive player of the game is Jahmyr Gibbs and Ja'Cory Brooks, and on defense, DeMarco Hellams and Brian Branch. Well, welcome back to the DC Capstone Report. Here, our third and final segment of the day. Don't forget to go and check out Lance's other sites, RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com, for some great Alabama content. Well, this week we're down, coming off of a loss at Baton Rouge, a tough-fought game, and we got to turn right back around and go back on the road. We have a 7-2 record. We fall to number 10th in the nation. Not sure where we'll be when the college football playoff comes out, but our playoff, it would have to be a whole lot of things happen for Alabama to ever make a playoff, and that would mean that LSU would have to lose another game for us to get to a championship and win all of our other games and get to a championship game. So I don't think that we're thinking about that now. The question is, what can Coach Saban do to get this team's mind right going into Oxford, Mississippi to play the Ole Miss Rebels? Ole Miss is ranked 11th, and they only have 1 loss, and that is to LSU that we just lost to. So We have a common opponent. We're going on the road again, and there's a lot of questions about this game. I think Lane Kiffin would love nothing better than to beat Nick Saban. I think that's what he wants. He loves Nick Saban, loved his time at Alabama, but has a competitive spirit, and I think he would love to beat Nick Saban in this game. I believe, as I was talking to one of my friends who is an Ole Miss alum, I believe this is a good opportunity for them to catch Alabama in a down year and have them at home and have an opportunity for a victory. So I see this as an opportunity for Ole Miss to win this game. I'm not saying they're going to, but I think if Alabama plays like they did against Tennessee and like they did on the road against LSU, if they do those same things, if they're undisciplined, if we have turnovers, if we do those things, I think Ole Miss can win this ball game. They have the talent, they have the players, and they have a good coach that has a good scheme. So. What do we need to do? We need to, first of all, we got to change our attitude. One thing I thought late in this game against LSU, and I told a buddy of mine, this team is probably the most undisciplined Alabama team that I saw play. Silly penalties, making mistakes that extend the other team's series on third down, making penalties and plays that they shouldn't make, making wrong decisions. And when I say team, I'm included the coaches on this. I think in making some wrong decisions in play calling. So I think the whole team needs to have an attitude change. They change their attitude and get in a position of getting back to where the Bama standard is. And so I think going on the road, our attitude is going to be important. Coming off a loss, how are we going to take it? Are we going to rise up to the occasion and play for pride, crimson pride that we all talk about? Is that just something we sing about and talk about, or is it something that we're going to do? We're going to have to reach down deep and decide if we're going to play for those crimson jerseys that we're wearing, that crimson pride, if you will, and go on the road and take it out on Ole Miss, an opportunity to do that. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to limit our mistakes, limit our penalties, and take advantage of what the defense gives us. Ole Miss has a new defensive coordinator this year. I'm sure they've watched what other teams have done against us and look for them to do similar things to try to get us to pass short passes to limit us downfield and try to stop our run game. So I think that's what Ole Miss is going to do. I believe Bryce Young has to have a great game in this game, and our wide receivers are going to have to get open down the field in order to try to extend their defense a little bit so that we can open up our running game. So I believe that we're going to have to pass the ball to win this game. I believe it could get into a shootout, and I believe that we've had one of those games before on the road at Ole Miss where we had a shootout that the last team who gets the ball wins. But if we limit our penalties and if we can run the ball effectively in this game with Jahmyr Gibbs getting a lot of touches, then I think we have ability to win this game on the road against Ole Miss and go to 8-2, coming back home for our final 2 games of the season. What we need to do on defense? Well, we're going to have to pressure the quarterback. Their quarterback, Jackson Dart, can throw the ball if you give him time. But if you harass him, if you get into his face, if you don't give him time to throw the ball, he has a tendency to make some mistakes with it. So we're going to have a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So that means Will Anderson Jr., Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell going to have to step up and pressure the quarterback. I thought Byron Young had a great game against LSU. He has to continue to step up. With Justin Aborgby gone for the year, Byron Young is going to have to continue to step up. Who else will step up? Will DJ Dale, Jaheim Otis come back from their injuries and feel better in this game to be able to play well on the road? Jaheim Otis is a Mississippi product. I look for him to step up and try to really play a big game in this game. And if he does that, that gives us more pressure up the middle. I believe we'll be able to keep Jackson Dart in the pocket and get some sacks on him that'll limit what they can do. So overall, I think we go into Oxford, we go in there and play a good game, and we come away with a victory on the road that moves us to 8-2. And I got the score as Alabama 45, Ole Miss 24. Alabama 45, Ole Miss 24. Well, that's another edition of the DC Capstone Report. Thank you all for tuning in to listen to us this day. Don't forget to go out and check out Lance's other sites at RollTideBama.com or FreelancePictures.com. Back again next week, and until then, this is DC saying Roll Tide.